Welcome back to another episode, guys. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit differently. We're not going to be working the wagon. We're not going to be working the Z. We're going to be working on my 99 Ford Ranger. So a little bit of backstory here, what's going on. Usually when I go to the junkyard, I look for a 410 locking differential, which is what we're looking at here. This is equipped with, I believe, a 3.6 or a 3.73. I think I have the diff tag in the glove box. So I'll have to verify which diff is in this. This is the 4-cylinder model. It's a 5-speed manual. It's not gutty or has a ton of horsepower, but it is dang good, reliable, and gets the job done. I've actually off-roaded this quite a few times with the open differential, and we got stuck once. So it's basically gone through, lakes, rivers, all types, not lakes, excuse me, rivers, mud, all types of stuff, and it hasn't let me down. So it's not bad. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you won't get stuck. But I have a camper top for this. I like to go camping with it, so that's kind of what I'm getting at here. But this is going to help for a lot of reasons, since it's not a gutty. It's it's a gutless motor. Having a longer ratio diff in here when it's in 5th gear does bog on the highway, and you're basically foot flat to the floor. I actually drove this to Tampon back, which was about an 18-hour drive nonstop. I literally drove there foot flat to the floor and foot flat to the floor on the throttle back. And before everyone's like, "Oh, you were speeding," I was literally doing foot flat to the floor just because that was the speed limit, just to maintain speed limit. So yeah, the shorter differential is definitely going to help a lot here. I will argue that it actually help for fuel economy. Generally, shorter ratios don't help for fuel economy, and that's because you're sitting at a higher RPM range when you're in your largest gear, in this case 5th gear. But because this thing is literally flat to the floor to maintain like any kind of speed in 5th gear on the highway, you're basically burning as much fuel as you can. So fuel economy, I think, will actually improve on this, but we're really not chasing fuel economy numbers. It's really just trying to help the engine out, pushing the chassis along. Also, because it's a locking differential, we'll have 2-wheel drive, not 1-wheel drive when we get into muddy conditions. So yeah, I ended up finding this at the junkyard, and I didn't even have like means. I was by myself, so I dropped it by myself, and then like to get it back, the forklift guy wasn't there, so like I didn't want anybody taking it either. So like I basically propped it up, bolted on some wheels and tires that I found at the yard, and like rolled it back almost to the checkout place, and then somebody came and helped me with it. So yeah, they didn't help me load it in the truck though, so I had to load this in the truck by myself. Another thing that's pretty cool is this has a sway bar. Unlike the differential in here, it does not have a sway bar, so that'll add a little bit of stability. Whether or not that's actually necessary, I don't know. The one thing I didn't do is I didn't get the U-bolts from the sorry, I was distracted by this, but I didn't get the U-bolts from the one that I took it from. It was a 4-wheel drive Ranger, so usually the FX4 Rangers will have these, or the 4x4 Rangers. They'll have the 410 locking differential, but the one that was at the yard was really rusty, but thankfully this is all in really good shape. But I didn't take the U-bolts out because somebody had extended U-bolts used on there because they had blocks. So I don't know why they were, like using blocks, but whatever. I don't plan on using any blocks. I want to keep it exactly as is. And if the forums aren't lying to me, then the U-bolts from this differential, which is a 7.5 inch, and this is an 8.8 inch, the tube diameter should be the same here. Or here rather, so the U-bolts should still fit. Now, we'll see if that was a lie or not. This thing needs to get pressure washed. It's pretty nasty. The fluid that came out of it was fine. It's in great shape on the inside. We'll get video footage of that when we take it apart, just the back cover to clean it up to get it, sealant on there. But we'll probably pressure wash this tomorrow or another day because I'm not going to have time for that tonight. It's already pretty late. I kind of want to just burn the midnight oil and get the old differential out. So the goal for today is going to be to drop the old differential, get it all ready, and then the next day we'll pressure wash this. Maybe I'll paint it. I'm kind of, I don't really care for the paint because this stuff is going to be running through mud and all types of other stuff. The drum brakes are rusty on the outside, but the shoes look pretty good on the inside, so I don't know if I'll replace them. Drum brakes are kind of like that. It sucks because I put new drum brakes on this, so I'm going to hopefully sell this diff off because there is no clicking, no whining, nothing. This diff is in fantastic shape, so it gets to be passed on to the next person if they want it. But drums and stuff, I would rather just do when it's on the car. I know a lot of people are probably like, just knock it out now. I'll just do it on the car. It's not a big deal. So yeah, the game plan is get the old diff out, get the new diff washed and prepped, and we'll get the new diff in. I think the biggest trouble here and that I had at the yard is the parking cable. I think is kind of a pain to get out. We need to get the parking cable out so that we can drop the whole assembly. The brake line is easy to remove. And we don't have any sway bar links on this differential, so we'll be able to knock that out pretty easily. And I'll walk through that in more detail. The only thing that I bought new is obviously the fluids. So we're going to be using Motorcraft AEW 90, which I forgot that I bought AEW 90, but that's what was recommended. And this horrific smelling additive friction modifier from Motorcraft as well. So we'll need, I need to verify this, but we'll need 2 fluid ounces of this and roughly 2 and some odd change of these guys, but this will get filled when it's level and in the car. So that's new, obviously fluid. And these end links that I purchased, because the ones that were on that Ranger, they weren't coming off. They weren't in bad shape, but they weren't coming off. So sway bar bushings aren't cracked. They're actually in good shape, so I'm not gonna replace them. There's no need. Again, this is not really like, you know, a performance vehicle. There's no need for me to put poly bushings or anything here. I just need the locking aspect of the differential and the ratio. So I need to go get changed. I'm in way too nice clothes for this job. Also not wearing the correct gear, wearing my mom's slippers. I just wanted to come out here and record the intro. All right, first order of business. Let's go ahead and crack these lug nuts loose. All right, and we'll jack this thing up. Not a lot, just so that we can get the wheels off and get some jack stands in there. Go ahead and zip the wheels off. All right, now we'll lower it onto our jack stands. Do this nice and slow. Well, that's not gonna work. That's that's basically all the way to the ground. Oh man. Yeah, my jack stands aren't very high, so I mean, for dropping the diff, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, having it all the way almost to the ground. I don't want any weight on that diff, obviously, but we won't have to put stands under it at least. So let's see if I let go all the way, will it actually drop down to the ground or not? Okay. Well, doesn't drop all the way to the ground, so that's good. It's pretty sturdy, so yeah. Another thing, anytime I jack up a car, always keep a wheel and a rim under there. You know, if this thing were to fall off those jack stands and come on crashing down, that wheel can save your life, at least from not getting crushed underneath. But you know, having this thing this low actually will work in our favor, because I can access everything I need like this, and then when we loosen these U-bolts, we can just lightly release the axle down. And I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but like, this is about my hand with the current brake rotors. And then I want you to take a look at these. I mean, these are massive compared to these little guys. So let me see if I can get this thing off and put it side by side so you guys can just see the difference. So here's a comparison. I mean, these are like baby, they basically almost go over these old drums. But the lug pattern and everything should be the same, so quite beefier than before. You can see the size of these shoes, and as I was talking about, you can see there's plenty of shoe life left here. I don't really see any issues. The cylinder's just dirty, the seals aren't leaking on the brake cylinder here, so that's good. And everything else hopefully will work. Looking at this axle tube, just eyeballing it, because remember the forums told me they'll fit. It looks the same. So I know a lot of people are probably like, why aren't you changing the U-bolts? Honestly, if they don't snap and they're not rusty or in bad shape, these are in perfect shape, honestly. I'm not gonna change them. Though I do need to change the bushings and the springs. The spring perches, they're pretty smushed out, so they'll have to get replaced, but I can do all that with this in the car. It doesn't really have to be done outside of the car, so it's not that big of a deal. And then if we needed to add blocks, do anything, which I really don't think I'm gonna need to do, we'll do that. Another thing that I'd like to do at some point is upgrade these springs. We've only got 3 leaf springs, and the car that I pulled these off, ironically, I thought it would have more leaf springs, but it had 3 as well. So they're pretty weak in terms of leaf springs. Again, these are probably, you know, because it's not supposed to tow anything heavy, but this is a beefier diff by all means, so this should be better for towing as well. Not that this engine could probably handle too much, though it did pull the wagon, so I don't know. It pulled it pretty easily, surprisingly. And when we were doing that, we actually wrapped it around the bumper, which is 100% not rated for that weight. But it did, and then break off, but I would not recommend that. And it was a flat toe. pretty much just back to my house from like down the street when that thing blew up. So if you haven't seen that video yet, definitely check that out. Check that video out. But yeah, so let me go ahead and get some lights so we can see what's going on down here. I'm going to start taking this thing apart, starting with the handbrake cables, because those things are such a pain, but we need to disconnect them from the drums, and then we'll work around to get the brake line off, get the sensors unplugged and such, and then we'll get this diff dropped out. All right, first order of business, we're going to go ahead and get the drive shaft off. If you notice on the old one, the drive shaft was still attached, and that's just because I couldn't get this off. I didn't have the tool actually to get it off, so I ended up cutting that off. Hopefully the drive shafts are the same, because if they're not, that's gonna suck because I cut the one off at the junkyard. So these are 12 mils. Just gonna go ahead and loosen them up. These aren't C's because I've had this off before. Come on. And can I reach this one without having to go over to the other side? Yes, I can. These get pretty seized. If you've never taken them off, they can get pretty stuck in there. But I've had these off a few times now, so they're not seized because I serviced the transmission. I haven't had this diff out before. And wow, it looks like we even got some like fluid in these. Interesting. Might just be water. But it looks like our diff is seeping a little on the front seal, which is not a big deal. It's not that big of a seep where I would consider replacing the seal. All right. Our yoke is still in good shape. Let's see, there we go. So we're just gonna let this rest right there, because we don't want to pull this out of the transmission, because I just serviced the transmission not that long ago and I'd rather not have that fluid pouring out. So there we go. One diff. All right, with the parking brake released, and this is primarily why I wanted to utilize the parking brake to get the drive shaft off, so I didn't have to hold anything, because I want to get the drive shaft off so it doesn't spin on me freely, because even if it's in gear, it's just going to spin. But the parking brake will hold it in place, so you can loosen it like I did. But with that out of the way, now we can work on getting these off so the parking brake is released. We'll pull this off, and you can see these shoes are actually in, or these drums are in pretty good shape. And that would be because I really replaced them not that long ago. Like, I got plenty of meat here. So it's actually 20 or 30,000 miles on these drums, and they're, I mean, if you worked on drums, you know they don't wear as much. So that being said, I've got to figure out now how we're gonna get the parking brake cable out. And looking in there, it looks like there's like a little clip that we're gonna have to squeeze to yank the cable out. But before we do that, we're gonna have to disconnect it from, it looks like a hook. Yeah, right there. So I don't know if you can see that hook right there. So we'll have to disconnect that, it looks like. Or actually, no, the cable goes up here. Yeah, I'll have to inspect to see how this works, but we're gonna have to pull that and then remove the parking brake cable out. I think I'm gonna lose all my time doing this. So I'm gonna study this a little bit, figure out how it works, and then we're gonna pull it out. I really didn't want to remove these shoes, but it looks like we're gonna have to. So let's go ahead and just pry these springs out of the way. Oh wow, it clipped right back in. And I know there's tools for this. I'm not using them. Oh, come on. Okay. There's one. Let's see if we can massage the second one. It is so much easier to do this when you have the tools that you're supposed to have that I definitely do not have right now. How far do we need to take these apart just to be able to get what we need? So, let's get this parking brake adjustment spring, I believe, or cable off rather. Get our washer off. And we've got our bottom string still attached, but I wonder if I can just get rid of this shoe and get to our parking brake, which is somewhere down here. I'm gonna regret not taking the spring out, aren't I? Lovely. Okay, there's our parking brake cable attachment. And like I said, I'm 100% gonna regret not paying attention to any of this. But hey, it'll come back together, right? That's what they all say. So I'm tempted to almost sell this without drum brakes and make it the other guy's problem, but I'm not gonna do that as much as I'd like to. And if you're cursing at me right now going, oh, you should be doing it this way, I have literally never done this before. It's my first time. I mean, I've done shoes before on this truck, but I've never taken the dang parking cables out. So, all right, we're gonna leave that there. And then we're gonna go to the other side now. As you can see, I've left my shoes relatively the same way they were. And honestly, I'm debating if I reattach them for the other guy, I might just give him the shoes and everything, all the hardware, or like loosely attach them, because he's, you know, whoever gets this, they're not gonna have the parking cable, so they're gonna have to do the same thing, right? So I don't know, I might just sell it as an axle with no, or the full assembly without the shoes, and just include this in a separate box. And if they want to assemble it that way, they don't have to go through the trouble of running the parking cable or taking them off and then putting the parking cable on. The downside is we're gonna have to do that for sure. We're gonna have to take this apart and put it back together. And honestly, I might just go get new shoes from the auto parts store, though these aren't terrible in thickness, but you know, if we got them off, I might just change them. So we'll see. But we've got to get this squeezed in. So basically it's flared out in different sections. And when I was at the yard, I actually just broke it because I was like, screw it. But here, we obviously can't do that because I need this. Okay. All right, that's one that made it through. We got one more on this side, of course, like inaccessible AF. There we go. All right, that wasn't too bad. Oh, okay. One parking cable disconnected. All right, that wasn't too bad. All right. Open diff life. Okay, so I'm gonna go have a sip of coffee, and then I'm gonna get the other side disconnected, but pretty much you remove the shoes, take it out of that little groove here as you saw, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The other side I can't imagine is gonna be any more different. So I'm gonna do that to the other side off camera, because there's no point in showing the same thing twice, unless the spring shoots me in the eye, and then it'd be kind of a shame we don't get that on camera. But I'm gonna have some coffee, then I'm gonna knock out the other side, and then we're gonna catch back up on when we're gonna take the shocks off and the brakes and everything else. All right, so I just finished taking the parking cable out of the passenger side. Since we're already here, we're gonna go ahead and remove the shock. So I've installed these not that long ago, brand new Bilsteins. So I think the impact should be able to pretty much pull this off. Yeah, it would help if I, okay, of course it's gonna be under tension, so we can either jack this up or we can knock this bolt out. What do we do? I say let's just knock it out. Let's get this bolt. So I don't recommend doing this. I would say, you know, jack it up to get the tension off, but because you can mushroom this thing pretty easy. If you're not careful, but it should be fine. Oh, come on, it's so close to coming out. Oh, come on. All right, we'll have to jack it up a little bit. Honestly, it would have been easier if we just jacked it up to get the tension off the shock, but you know me. Let's make it harder than it needs to be. These bolts, can I just say, are the original bolts on this car, compared to the Ranger that I had to take these off of, the donor. These are in excellent shape. There's just no rust on these. So, all right, that's one shock that we can kind of just do that and free it. So it's already at the bottom. It's not going to travel anymore. We don't have to worry about it. Let's go ahead and pull off the sensor, which I believe is it doesn't have rear ABS, so I'm not sure if it's a speed sensor or what. But that guy up there, try to get that off. And then I might actually just go ahead and take the bracket. There's a bolt and bracket right here on the top of the differential. It's kind of hard to see. I'll kind of get us in there. I'll get us under the truck to show that. We'll get that off. We'll get this wire out of here. Just because we're on the side, it might be easier just to knock that out. All right, place your bets now. What are the odds this connector snaps, or the plastic snaps? Because it has never been taken off. Of course, Ford uses this design. I hate this connector type. I can't see that other side, so I'm gonna wing it blind here. I'm wondering if it's just better for me to unplug it from the diff entirely. Oh, nope. We got lucky. All right, it didn't break. I will take it. That's a win in my book. And loosen this 13 mil. See how well this goes. It'd be funny if this bolt just snapped. Actually, that would not be funny. All right, so I threaded it back in. I actually just slipped the parking cable out because we're gonna go ahead and swap that brake line stuff. Wow, one hand with the screwdriver. Now that's skill. Ladies, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Okay. All right, perfect. So we got that out. We're gonna leave the block in. I was thinking I'll take it out, but we'll drop the lines because I'm gonna take it off where the rubber line meets the hard line up there, just like I did with the donor diff. And then we'll swap this out like on the ground because I think it'd be easier for me to do that. So I'm not crawling under here and doing all this. But yeah, I think we've got the shock on that side, so we're gonna get that out. And then just that brake line up there, we're gonna hopefully loosen that. On the donor, I just cut that brake line because that thing was rusty, so, but I think we'll be okay with mine. There's no rust on that. Fingers crossed it doesn't rip or round itself or something, otherwise we're gonna have to do a brake line repair, which I really don't want to do. But yeah, after that, we'll go ahead and drop the diff and then we'll be done for tonight because I need to wash that thing, the donor diff, before we get it in here. And if I'm gonna be washing that, I don't want to be doing it at like 11 p.m. Nice. Back up the rear a little bit. Just to relieve some tension off that bolt. Okay. That would be the proper way to do it, unlike what I did on the other side. So before we pop that brake line, I need a little more space. So I probably should have done this from the beginning, but we'll just knock it out now. We're gonna pull the spare tire off. So it's pretty neat. Ford will provide you with 3 of these sticks. They just clip into each other. And you get your lug nut wrench, which has a square here. And all you gotta do is stick it in there. There is one end with like kind of like a little finger. And that'll hook. And then as we rotate this, it'll drop the spare tire. So I'm gonna go ahead and rotate this. There's no need in, you know, I guess watching me, unless you want a commentary, but that's unnecessary. So I'm gonna rotate this, get the spare tire off. And then once we have the spare tire out of the way, we're gonna take that brake line off. Here's that other end I was talking about that looks like a finger. All right, so just gonna remove this in the hardest way possible. Try to do this with one hand versus just lifting the tire up and literally just removing it like a normal person. I don't think I could do this with one hand. Oh, come on. You know, the easy way to do this is just to get under there and you lift the tire up a little bit and then just get it out. But I'm being stubborn. Now I wanna, okay, you know what, I give up. All right. What I was trying to say is, you literally just do this and push it through. Oh, come on. There we go. All right, let's see how well this goes. Also the breather, we're gonna yank this off real quick. This thing was definitely ripped from the diff at some point. I don't know when. Come on now. I got a 16 on the bottom, and 11 on the top. Oh yeah. I know the northern crowd is like, what in the world? It's probably salivating. They're like, dang. Look how easy that came out. Yeah, you guys should move. Well, actually, don't move this south. We only got too many people here. But if you're ever in the area, let me know. Be happy to give you some coffee. Dry it off a bit or clean it because it will, the brake fluid will corrode over. Now, I've got these little plug thingies, which work pretty well. But if you don't have a plug, what you can do, a little neat trick, is cut the end of a finger off your glove, get yourself a zip tie it over, and it won't make a mess, presumably. All right, now we need to get this off. So I think there's like a little metal sliding clip thingy majigger that we're gonna have to slip off from there, and then we should be able to pull this line out. Unless this bolts, actually this bolts up to the frame, wow. You know what, forget that. We're just gonna unbolt it from the frame. I didn't realize that, that's cool. I guess that makes sense, it holds the rubber mount. So I don't know what size that is, so I'm gonna try to find out. We'll unbolt it from there and just pull this whole thing down. All right, after a lot of struggle, I finally got this on. I think it's loosening. It's just super slippery because of all the brake fluid that leaked out. That's fun. There we go. All right, cool. Well, these rubber mounts are in good shape. Hopefully I haven't been smashing into them too much. All right, neato. All right, what are the odds the impact will crack these guys loose? Because on the one that was, these usually are super rusty, and they were very rusty on the donor. But let's see. And yes, chrome sockets on an impact. Living life on the edge. Oh my, no way. No way. Oh my goodness, there's no way. Oh, like butter, dude. Wow, these are in fantastic shape, I gotta say. And this last one is not wanting to cooperate with the impact, though. It's not like cross or anything, it's going fine by hand. I think it's just because it's the last bolt, it's vibrating like crazy, and the impact isn't really able to translate any of the impacts to the nut itself. Because I mean, this is coming off almost by hand at this point. Look at that. I mean, that's why I didn't feel like replacing the U bolts, because they're in great shape. And the plate's in great shape. It's not even rusty. These aren't even threaded or cross-threaded. That's good news. And the nuts aren't even that hot, so they came off pretty darn easy. I just soaked them a little bit, and there we go. So, time to knock out the second side over there. All right, we're going POV on this side. I don't want my hands anywhere under there. All right, I think we're ready to just lower the diff. And these guys tend to be nose heavy, so when you go to lower them, the nose likes to fall forward. So ideally have a little bit of support, but we're so low down to the ground. I'm not really worried about anything getting damaged at this height. So we're gonna lower it as gently as we can with the jack and then try to slide it out at least a little bit. Our main points of concern are the brake lines. So we do not want this thing landing on its head, which would be kind of insane. We would have to do like a 180 kickflip and land on the top. But the brake lines are priority not to damage here. I mean, if, you know, worst case, the diff cracks in half, which would be insane. This is such a thick diff. I can't sell it, and that's fine, you know. And I mean, this isn't really a super desirable diff anyway. However, I need that brake line. So that's something that we need to, you know, work on. The second thing people might be keen on, look at this. So I just noticed this parking brake cable. If you notice, I can't really twist it, but it is like the insulation is worn down and it's taken the paint off of this. I mean, it's been rubbing on the shock. So that's gonna have to be addressed. That's, I mean, I doubt it rubbed through to the point where it'll puncture, but you never know. I mean, if I live to 1,000 years and this keeps rubbing up and down, it might just rupture, but who knows. All right, let's get this diff out. I guess I'll just stick you guys on a POV right here. You can watch from this side and watch the chaos unfold. I'm gonna go on that side and lower it down. Oh, yep. That's the axle. Come on. Easy does it. Easy, girl. There we go. Definitely not the most elegant way to do this. But wow, this diff is like really light compared to the other one. I'm gonna yank this out of here, and yeah, this diff is so much lighter because that other diff weighs at least like 25 or 30% more than this one, but no one's died. I'm not very happy with how the car is sitting right now, or the truck is literally resting on those leaf springs. Granted, it's also resting on that jack stand over there. So I think what I'm gonna do is probably get the jack after I get this yanked out and just jack one of the leaf springs up, take the stand out, and let it rest on those stands. If the weight is too shifted, it shouldn't be shifted back now because the diff is the heaviest part in the rear. I mean, other than the frame, of course, but it should be more nose heavy at this point. Yeah, I'm just gonna make sure the weight distribution is okay because I don't want it resting on the leaf springs. I mean, I don't think it'll hurt anything, but I'd rather just not because the whole truck bounces right now because it's currently bouncing on the leaves. So yeah. All right, everybody, it's the next day. So a quick update. I've got the old diff out, as you saw in the footage. I'm gonna go ahead and start pressure washing and degreasing this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to excuse me, a little out of breath because I've been running around this morning. Got people coming over in about 25 minutes, so I'm trying to knock this out. Pressure wash that diff, grill at the same time, and wash 2 kayaks. So, trying to get it all done. But here's what I'm using. I use this super clean purple stuff. Works great. I'm using it at 100%, no diluted strength. I've used this to degrease engines. It works pretty great. Get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace, or any local home improvement store. Now the game plan is I'm actually gonna spray the insides here, all of this, and you can see how caked it is up here especially. So I'll get you guys a good before. I don't know if I'm gonna be recording the actual pressure washing process, but we are gonna have to re-grease a ton of stuff because we're about to take pretty much all the grease off because we're degreasing it. So yeah, and the charcoals are almost ready to start grilling over here, so got to start doing all these things at once. So I'm gonna go ahead and start spraying that thing down. We're gonna let it soak. In the meantime, I'm gonna put the meat on the grill and then kind of just bounce back and forth. All right, so I didn't really get to do this last night. People stayed over pretty late, so I just kind of one thing after another. But you can see here it is washed. It is significantly rustier than the original diff. My original diff barely has any rust. It's pretty, you know, scaly and flaky. The rear cover is mostly surface rust. The diff itself is a little flaky, but I mean, you know, I'd probably be dead before this rusts through. The back plates are surprisingly not bad. I mean, I've seen worse. So they're still intact, which is a big deal. But it looks like this thing's definitely had shoes replaced at some point. You can see this one is thinner than, I don't know if the camera picks up at least the difference, but this one's thinner, which is pretty normal. One shoe tends to be a little more strain than the other one. But there's still plenty of meat on these to the point where I don't think they need to be changed. So I'm not gonna change them at this moment. at some point I'll have to do that, but you know, it's a shoe thing. Now I want to see if I can get this parking cable. I don't know if you can see that. Runs in there. I want to see if I can get that out by unhinging it from the bottom. So we'll see if that's possible. Yeah, so I don't think there's going to be a way for me to get in there because it runs behind this shoe. So at the minimum, this shoe would have to come off for me to get in there to disconnect this line or the parking brake cable. So it is what it is. I'm gonna go ahead and disassemble this side and that side off camera. It is identical. So the only difference between these brakes and the ones that we took apart earlier are this is a 10-inch, those are 9-inch. So you know what I just realized? The hardware, it comes with the drums. Like I haven't done this job in like 3-4 years, but all the rusty hardware here, it comes with the drums. So like when you buy the assembly, it comes with brand new hardware. So even though this is rusty, it doesn't matter. Like it gets replaced every time the shoes get, the hardware comes with the shoes. But when you get new shoes and drums, it comes with all that. So, all right, so I've already done the other side. Originally wasn't gonna walk anybody through this just because I mean, the camera angles aren't great. All the springs and everything are tucked away. But what I would recommend is just make sure you take pictures of everything. Shoes and drums assemblies tend to be kind of like complicated looking, but once you figure out where everything goes, it's not that bad. Now, all this hardware that's rusty in here, like this, and you know, surprisingly, this side isn't that rusty. The other side was like where the wire, this little cable for the parking brake, everything goes is super rusty. That all comes new when you buy new shoes. But again, these are practically new, just looking at the thickness. So I don't really, you know, I don't see the need. Okay. There you go, that's one shoe. Now let's get the other one off. Cable out. All right, let's see if we get lucky. All right, I think I should just be able to grab this guy. There we go. All right, the lighting is pretty bad here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna either break these tabs because I don't need this cable anymore, or just push them in. And then once you get these little, it's like this. So imagine my fingers are the tabs. There's like 4 of them kind of in a cross pattern, which I seemingly can't make with my fingers. And 2 of them are like looking out. So like if you imagine the hole being, let's say, 1 inch in diameter, they're 1.5 inches, and it's pushing like you can't. So when you bend them in, you kind of squeeze it smaller, and like a normal tab, it just slides out. So I'm gonna just knock that out real quick. All right, next order of business. We're gonna yank the parking cables out here in a second, but we want to remove these brake lines. Ooh, there's a lot of play there. What in the world though? This is kind of loose for a 10 mil, but this is a 9 mil. And the 9 mil does not go over this at all. What in the world? That is weird. 9.5? That would be a Ford thing to do. So 9 mil doesn't fit, but the 3/8 does. So that's fun. Oh God, these are. These are pretty seized on there, which is what I figured would be the case. Let's try this side. And I can't even get in on this side. It is. You've got to be kidding me. I bet all the mechanics in the north are laughing. Oh, you can't get that off? Yeah, well. This is what I get for getting a rusty diff, I guess, from a yard. So a 3/8 fits only in one spot and will not fit anywhere else, probably because it's been rounded. Oh, jeez. these. All right. That's enough heat. Something tells me I'm probably going to be replacing these cylinders. Would not be surprising. There we go. Come on. I rounded it before me. And quite a bit at that, so. We have created a impromptu size. I really hope my brake line, the old brake lines, fit in this, because if they don't, I'm gonna have to reuse these lines, and I don't want to. All right, this side didn't really come out that hard. It didn't really put up a fight, but something seems really weird about these brake lines. Like, I can't put my finger on it. They just don't seem like original. I don't know why. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna snake this out for now. And I mean, I can always bend a new one. It's a bunch of squigglies. This one seems a lot more factory to me. Like, these bends look a lot more professional. Like, I don't know, you guys tell me. I mean, that one's not bad, but it definitely seems like those brake lines have been replaced. And given the rot level on this thing, I wouldn't be surprised. And you'll notice the coating color, at least, is different. These are factory lines. I've never touched these. That looks like auto parts brake line. And like, it just, like, the fittings aren't even the same. Like, if you look at this one, you can see how long that fitting is. Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. And then look at this side. And, you know, these are 9 mils or 10 or what are they? Actually, I already forgot. 11 mils, excuse me, on here. So I think someone's replaced these brake lines. I don't think these are factory brake lines. The bends just look, because this bend also here, you'll notice, look how kinked that is when they were getting into the distribution block, and look at this bend. So yeah, I think someone's replaced these brake lines. All right, so here's the line from the original, this is our line, the original line. You can see these bends are so much more professional compared to what that previous one was. I mean, whoever did this, I mean, I'll give them a C rank. They didn't do a terrible job, but they did that bend there is unacceptable. That was just dumb. You know, you can't make sharp bends like that. It needs to come out at an angle. Otherwise, you can kink the line, you will break the finish on it 100%, and then it will rust. And I guarantee that line, if it was in the Rust Belt, and you could Rust Belt mechanics, you know, chime in, I guarantee it would break there. Also, what in the world is this? Why is this so long? It doesn't need to be that long. Like, yeah, I don't know, maybe a D rank. I'm starting to drop my ranking. All right, so I just placed an order for the local parts store. We're gonna replace these guys entirely because these bleeders, I could probably get them out with some heat. It ain't gonna happen. That felt good. And this line, honestly, given the hackery, I don't know, that's not up to par for what I'd be happy with. These bends are just, we're gonna toss all of that. We're gonna replace these cylinders because if this is rotted out, I have no doubt that these are probably original, and I'd imagine the seals aren't too happy inside of them. So we'll go pick that up in a little bit, but went ahead and cut that because we're not gonna be using these lines, and once we take this off, it won't get in the way. So next thing up, let's get that block off. All right, 13 mil. Oh boy, that's fairly rusty. We can finally get rid of these guys. These cables are junk. Come on. Okay. Where's our flathead? Just open that up a little bit. There we go. And yeah, I'm not gonna use a soft line either. It's pretty rusty too. That's all junk. All right, now we have a bare bone diff. So we could take these guys off when we get it on the car, so I'm not gonna worry too much about that. But I'm gonna do a little bit of cleaning so that we can turn this thing around and get it up there. The only other thing I guess that I should do before I probably get it up there is remove this part from the drive shaft because we're not going to be using that. So yeah, actually, let me go ahead and remove this. This thing is pretty seized on as well. So I forgot we also need to remove this connector. We do need to get this off. This looks like it was brand new. It looks kind of new. I don't know. Ours has been washed. All right, these bolts are pretty seized on. I've already got 2 of them off, and I'll show you just how seized they are. Come on. We almost had it. There we go. Dang. That'd be funny. Oh, there she goes. Ooh. Oh, sizzling. Man, I hope I never have to take that nut off, because that's going to be fun. Check us, Glenn. Oh, there it goes. Huh? Alright, so just push the C-clip. All the fluid on the side. Come on, dude. Ironically, the side with the bad seal's got all the fluid in it.